Hi, I'm Pastor Tay of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTay.com. Welcome to Espresso. It's an interactive Bible study that is like Espresso, strong and smooth. Enjoy the taste. Facebook Live conversation about Christian marriage. I want to welcome the Titus 2 community. Stuart, is that being shared there? Go ahead and check that out. We also have the Explicitly Christian Marriage Facebook group. Long name, but a very nice group. Love that you guys are with us tonight. And we also have our YouTube viewers through our channel called Espresso. And so those are the three groups joining us tonight. And also my personal Facebook page. And I wonder if any of you guys are sharing it onto your page. Go ahead and do that, would you? So that the word goes out about Christian marriage tonight. Now, if you are watching this on a replay later, we want to welcome you. You can still make comments and ask your questions, and we're going to be notified of that, and I will still answer your questions. In fact, all the shows are archived inside a menu tab called Units. And so if you are inside the Titus 2 community or inside Explicitly Christian Marriage, the Units tab is on the left side if you are watching the show on a laptop or a desktop. Now, if you're watching it on a mobile device, the Units tab is probably right above you. Go ahead and tap that and you will see all the shows from the past, and you will see that we have a plan here to build a Christian marriage curriculum so that you can access it anytime and benefit from the teaching there. But before we go any further, I want to introduce the man himself. He is Stuart Martin. He is the one that is managing the show tonight. So Stuart, come on over here and say hello to the fine folks out there.
Hi, guys.
All right. Stuart Martin, go ahead and say hello to him. Feel free to participate inside the scroll there and say hello to Stuart. We also have George Zoe. He is the director of the Titus 2 community, and he is hosting the event tonight. So he's going to be Mr. Social Butterfly, and you can say hi to George as well. We also have Dr. Don Owsley in Denver, Colorado. He will be providing the scroll content tonight. So all the key concepts and key words that I say, he's going to drop it inside the scroll. And so really appreciate Dr. Don. Would you guys say hello to him tonight as well? Now, our Facebook Live conversation involves 4 major topics. These are the 4 topics that experts consider to be the main topics in a Christian marriage. And so what we've done is we've dedicated 1 week to each one of those topics. They are communication, conflict, in-laws, and sex. So let's say that again for review. Communication, conflict, in-laws, and sex. And so we dedicate 1 week to each topic, and then when we're done, we start the rotation all over again. And so we are now at the top of the rotation again. And if you look inside the units, you will see that we've accomplished quite a bit so far. But tonight we're at the top of the rotation. The topic is communication. All experts say that communication is the key to building a relationship. By the way, pit stop. Stuart, how's the scroll looking? Are people inside there? So I got a thumbs up from him. Is Dr. Don dropping information inside
Don
there?
Is here.
Don
Hi,
is
Don.
here. Dr. Don, welcome. Thank you for your service to us. And so inside the scroll, we're talking about communication. And really, all of these topics are really, really big. And so you know what we've been doing. Even though we are on communication or conflict, what we've done is we've then gotten even more specific, and we got to come up with kind of a specific topic inside communication so that we can focus. This is only a 30-minute show, and so we want to stay very focused and organized. So tonight, our subtopic is nonverbal communication. Somebody drop that in the scroll, please. Nonverbal communication. In fact, I'm going to use the 3 letters NVC, okay? N as in Nancy, V as in Victor, and C as in, what is C? Okay, Stuart. Okay. Candy?
Yes.
Celebration?
I like candy.
Okay.
Chocolate.
So chocolate, candy. Chocolate starts with C too. So NVC stands for nonverbal communication. So that's going to be our code tonight. You're going to see NVC all over the place as Dr. John drops the information there. So tonight it's about nonverbal, meaning it's about the way that we communicate without words. Okay, did you get that? Without words. This is wordless communication. But boy, does it send a message, right? You remember that expression, actions speak louder than words, right? You know that's very real. So here's the proposal tonight, and that is that before you hear the words, you actually receive the nonverbal communication. So think of communication this way. Let's say Stuart, he's over here. I know you can't see him. Let's say he's communicating to me, okay? So the information is coming to me, but the journey of that information coming to me, I'm getting the nonverbal stuff first, and then the words come to me second. So that's how powerful NVC, or nonverbal communication, is. Experts actually conclude that it is more powerful, check that out, more powerful than verbal communication. So let me ask you, can you tell if somebody is upset even if they don't say a word? Absolutely. Okay, maybe you have that type of knowledge about your spouse. I'm sure you do, that you can actually tell if your spouse is upset even though he or she does not say a word. In fact, everybody knows, even your dog knows that your spouse is upset, right, and walks away. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And by the way, women are 10 times more sensitive to nonverbal communication than men, okay? And so that's just a simple reality. Again, that's just a generality. There are some men that are very sensitive, okay, but just generally speaking, what do you call that? Women's intuition. You know what I call that? Actually, I keep thinking of Spider-Man, you know, that comic hero Spider-Man, because Spider-Man had that sense, right? Do you guys remember Spider-Man? He'd always get the headache, right? Spidey sense tingling, right, Stuart? He would get the headache and he'd say, Spidey sense tingling. What is that? He could sense trouble before it happens. That's what women have. They have Spidey sense. They have the ability to sense trouble before it happens. Call it intuition, call it oversensitivity, whatever. The point is, women are definitely much better at that than men. So, women have spidey sense, and men have no sense at all, okay? That's kind of the situation.
Horse sense.
Right, Ned? Horse sense? Is that a term? Okay, I'm going to have to Google that later. That sounds interesting, Stuart. But let's talk about nonverbal communication tonight, boys and girls. It is a very powerful way to communicate. In fact, experts who got a lot of time on their hands came up with at least 13 categories of nonverbal communication. I'm not going to go over all that, okay? That's an overkill. Way too much. And besides, we only have 30 minutes, and we got to keep the show going. You guys have to keep interacting on the scroll. We want to have a good time tonight. So I'm not going to go over 13, but I'm going to give you the top 3 nonverbal communication categories. Let's just keep it simple, and then if you're interested, I'll give you a place where you can learn more about it. So, Dr. John, would you please drop that in the scroll, please? The top 3 nonverbal communication categories. Here's number 1, visual. Okay, number 1 is visual. This is by far the biggest of all the nonverbal communication categories. Visual. In fact, 80% of the nonverbal communication is visual. It's what you see. And so, what do you see? You see things like facial expressions. You see like eyes, or we're talking about, again, what you're seeing. So like eye contact or the lack thereof, or rolling the eyes. Well, there's a lot of things going on with the eyes, you know, rolling the eyes, or lips, right? Lips can smile, lips can frown, lips can smirk, right? They're smirking. And so you can convey like a snarky attitude or sarcasm, all without saying a word. So there's a lot of visual things going on. By the way, men don't like eye contact. You know that, right? Men in general don't like eye contact, especially if they're talking about something serious. You know, they're kind of looking away because it makes them uncomfortable. Whereas women are the opposite. Again, generally speaking, women want the eye contact because that's part of the connection, right? The engagement.
George has a question.
Men. Already a question?
He says you have a new goatee. What's going on?
What's going on there? Just giving it a try, okay? Just giving it. That's not important. Actually, it is important, right? Because it is nonverbal stuff, right? We communicate things by the way that I guess we look. That's a category I'm not going to talk about tonight. It's called, I've even forgot the name of that category. But yeah, kind of how you look, how you dress, those things matter. But why don't you guys go and scroll some of the old pictures of George Zoe? He had a really scruffy one. Mine's looking pretty good, huh? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Mine's getting pretty good right here. So anyway, just having some fun with that, okay? So what was the first category? I'm going to give you 3. It was visual, all right? Visual, like this stuff here. Number 2 is audible, okay? Audible is the next category, and so now we're talking about things that you hear, right? And this is pretty important, so please pay attention. And again, Dr. Don, thank you for dropping it in. Number 2 is audible. Now, underneath audible is a kind of a academic category called paralinguistics. Go ahead and look at that inside the scroll there. Stuart, did you want to say something? You look like you want to say something. No? Okay. All right. So paralinguistics is vocal communication without actual words. So vocal meaning something's coming out, but it's things like tone of voice, loudness, okay, inflection, right, and pitch. So that's paralinguistics there. And somewhere in there, I know you ladies are saying tone of voice, okay, because tone of voice is kind of a big deal, right? In fact, a lot of people, in fact, ladies, have you ever said this to your husband? It's not what you say, but how you say it, right? And so that's usually a tone of voice issue. Tonal quality. In fact, women are hyper sensitive to that. And how many times have you said to your husband, ladies, can you drop it inside the scroll, please? How many times have you said to your husband, I don't like your tone, okay? I don't like how you say it, or say it nicely. And so they get offended or hurt by your tone of voice. And that tends to drive guys crazy because guys are not that sophisticated. Guys probably have like 1 or 2 tones of voice. And so it comes out and then the guy's like, but I am nice, you know? And so it frustrates guys. And so these are some of the complications that we deal with. But again, all we're doing right now is we're just identifying the different tonal qualities, paralinguistics. And so these are the things that are happening. By the way, some women have nasty tone of voice too, okay? Very, always irritable. So it's not just men, okay? I'm not trying to create stereotypes here. All I'm saying is that these are generalities, and the reason why I speak about generalities is because they're generally true. Anyway, let's move on. The first 2 were visual and audible. The third category, and again, there's more, but we're just going to give the 3 here, and that is physical, okay? So physical is the third category. We're talking about things like body language now, okay? Body language, the hands, holding hands, crossing your hands. In some way, you know, you're conveying a message. Now, underneath here is an academic category called haptics, okay? And haptics is now you're communicating through touch. Okay, so you're touching something, and that's a very important form of nonverbal communication. You know, women love to touch, to communicate. So touching the arm, hugging. There's some serious huggers out there. Are you a hugger? That's how you communicate. And some people don't like touch, right? They don't want to be hugged or touched on their arm or so forth like that. But there's a lot of touching going on. You see even like big sisters or mentors stroking the hair of little sisters and things like that. And that's a very intimate, engaging kind of experience, and I think that's very special. So remember all the haptics that were going on when you were dating? Like the part of the dating experience was things like what? Why don't you guys tell me inside the scroll, okay? Did you hold hands? Okay, that's a haptic experience. Did you touch each other? Like, you know, pat on the back, hugging, kissing, right? All those haptic experiences. And then later, what? Instead of holding hands, now what are you doing? Holding your kids' hands, okay? Now you're hugging the kids, and now you're kissing your dog. And so, you know, things change. And so as these changes happen, these haptic experiences can become powerful messages that you send, and so what? No more kissing going on? And that can become kind of a negative message that you send. By the way, underneath the third category of physical, there's also an academic category called proxemics, okay? Dr. Don, drop it in. Proxemics is the study of how people use distance and space. So you've heard the term personal space, right? And so those things are factors as well in nonverbal communication. Some people like a little bit of distance. Other people, want to be really close. You know that culture is a factor too. Like some cultures are really into being close, and others, they value a little bit of distance. So proxemics is something that sends a very powerful message as well. Hey, do you know somebody who's aloof or standoffish? Okay, the idea is they're kind of staying away, and that sends a message, doesn't it? So if your spouse is a little bit standoffish, what kind of a message are you sending? Like, I don't want to be near you. Maybe there's some unresolved issue or something. And so being standoffish sends a message. That's kind of what I'm saying. So actions speak louder than words. That's what we're talking about tonight. And I gave you top 3 categories: visual, okay, audible, and physical. Now, if you want to learn more about this, I do have a 3-hour, 3 audios on my website, pastortay.com, called Speaking Without Words. Okay, so you might want to check that out. But right now, we got to move on. In fact, you know what I love to do with you guys? I love to run tests. And so get your number 2 pencils out, or find something you want to, write down. But I'm going to run some tests with you tonight. And it's going to be tests where you just answer yes or no. You know how we do that. We have a lot of fun with that. But before we do that, let me give you 2 broad categories, okay? And then underneath these categories, I'm going to give you a total of 5 test questions where you answer yes or no. But 2 broad categories, okay? The first broad category, and by the way, they both are directional, okay? Which way the nonverbal communication flows, okay? So the first direction, Dr. Don, please drop it in, is the nonverbal that is coming to you. Okay, so that's the direction. Is coming to you from your spouse, okay? So that's the first direction. Let's talk about that, and I'm going to give you some test questions related to this. And so again, to confirm, this is what your spouse is doing to you. And by the way, time out. Nobody's got a comment? Nobody's got a question? Come on, you guys. You guys are all having a good time by yourselves, having a little party inside the scroll. Okay, you guys say something nice to me, all right? Give me a thumbs up. Tell me that you understand what I'm talking about, okay? So, remember, we're talking about 2 major directions. The first is that it's coming to you, and so you are the recipient of the nonverbal communication. And so, what is your response? Check that. What is your Christian response to your nonverbal communication? Remember, this is a Christian show, and so in about a minute, I'm going to start throwing some verses at you, okay, as we take a test. So you guys ready? Let's take a test. Answer yes or no, and I'm going to give you a total of 5. And tonight, yes is the better answer, okay? And hopefully somebody tonight is going to get a perfect score, okay? I'm going to cheer you guys on. Somebody get a perfect score tonight. Yes is the better answer, and here is your first test question.
There's one question coming in, though.
All right, what's the question?
Hammond asks, what is a good way to disarm your spouse when they are coming at you angry?
Okay. Hammond, I'm going to ask you to wait because I will answer that question. It involves what you say, but that's another show, right? This is about nonverbal communication. So I'm going to give you a nonverbal answer to that. But that answer is going to come in the flow of our conversation. If you would be patient, please, for 10 minutes, and you will get your answer on how to kind of diffuse, right? Isn't that what he's talking about? How to diffuse kind of an angry situation. But we're going to answer it from a nonverbal perspective, okay? So, 10 minutes, please. I will answer your question. But here we go. I'm going to give you 5 questions, okay? And yes or no. Yes is the better answer tonight. Here we go. Test question number 1, yes or no. I can cover the nonverbal inadequacies in my spouse or of my spouse. Okay, I can cover the nonverbal inadequacies of my spouse, yes or no. Test yourself, please. Ask your or answer the question, okay? Yes or no. Now, this is the most basic nonverbal Christian response. What I mean by cover is cover in love. What I mean by that is forgive. We're talking about forgiveness. And by the way, before I forget, Dr. Don, would you make reference to your good teaching about forgiveness? I know he's done some shows before. You guys want to access that. And Dr. Don, if you could make reference to that. But we're talking about forgiveness right now, and he's already talked about that. I'm just reminding you that you got to forgive. The truth is, nobody's perfect in terms of nonverbal stuff, right? We all have inadequacies. Your spouse has inadequacies. And I know it bothers you, but the first option is, did you hear that? I know it bothers you. But the first option is that you must cover it in love. Give that a shot. Because the Bible says love covers a multitude of sins. And those sins includes nonverbal communication sins, okay? So think about it. What were the top 3 nonverbal categories? Visual, audible, physical. Can you cover? Can you forgive your spouse who's bad at the visual, like not good at eye contact? Can you forgive your spouse on tone of voice? What about physical things? Can you, excuse me, cover that? Dr. John, if you could drop in the Bible verses, Proverbs 10, Proverbs 17, 1 Peter chapter 4. Those verses will confirm that you're supposed to make that your first option. Love covers a multitude of sins. And so forgive. You don't have to confront everything. Oh, man. What is going on here? I got something caught in my throat. So give it your best shot. Forgive. In fact, drop another verse, please, Dr. Don. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Love keeps no record of wrongs. And so you want to cover, and you don't want to keep a record. This is a decision that you make now to forgive the person. Don't let it bother you so much. That's what I'm saying. So listen, if you are married to a socially awkward person, I wonder how many of you marry somebody who's socially awkward. Okay? Go ahead and drop that in the scroll. Yes, and yeah, my spouse is socially awkward. I mean, that's highly possible. Remember, one of the earlier shows I did, you can check out the units, was about how you marry somebody who was the opposite of you. So chances are, if you are socially really, with it and sharp, your spouse might not be that way. And so if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of things you're just going to have to cover in love, okay? And forgive. You should not be confronting every little thing that is bothering you. Exercise mercy. That's a very important thing. So listen, if your spouse is socially awkward and you're receiving all these inadequate nonverbal things, try your best and ask God to help you to forgive and to cover in love. And I got some bad news for you. Okay? And that is that it's probably going to get worse. Because as we grow older, our social skills begin to decline. Okay? And as we age and get into our 60s and 70s, you're going to see the decline in those things. And that might bother you even more. And so again, you got to grow in your character of mercy and grace and make that your option. Now, what if it really bothers you? Okay? What if you're really thinking about it and you're receiving all these inadequate nonverbal communication stuff and it's just really, really bothering you and getting you upset? Well, I'm going to say that you're not doing a very good job covering. You're not doing a very good job forgiving. But I don't want that to be entirely a criticism, because there is the next question, okay, that I'm going to ask you. And it's about how there comes a point where maybe you should say something to your spouse about it in efforts to help your spouse. Are you ready for test question number 2? Yes or no? Again, yes is the better answer. Number 2, Dr. John, drop it, please. I can lovingly point out my spouse's nonverbal communication that is bothering me. Yes or no? Okay? So, number 2, I can lovingly point out my spouse's nonverbal communication that is bothering me. That's about the fact that you do have the option of going to your spouse and pointing it out for the purpose of restoring the relationship, okay? So there might be a bunch of things that your spouse is doing that is really breaking your marriage. Tone of voice, scowl on his face, the tension that he or she creates non-verbally. I mean, these things are very real. And I'm not saying you should cover everything. Some of that stuff that is very unhealthy, you're going to have to lovingly, and I say lovingly because the purpose is restoration. The purpose is winning your spouse over. It's not just venting your anger or casting judgment. In fact, Dr. Don, please drop Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, where it says, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault. So you see, you have the option of doing that. And then the verse says, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. So again, that's the loving part, where you love the person enough that you would actually point out the nonverbal communicational inadequacies and then, try to restore the relationship. So go ahead and do that. In fact, can I ask you, what are some of the nonverbal or sinful nonverbal things that is affecting your marriage? I do think it's important that you make a list of those things. So go ahead and make a list. You don't have to put the list in the scroll unless you want to just, for fun, just share a couple things generally. In fact, let me mention a couple things you might want to write down and you might want to pray about. Things like irritable tone of voice, negative aura, like you walk into the room and suddenly things get tense, or combative stance, like you're always ready to fight, aloofness, now there's a certain distance, no eye contact, no touch, no kiss, you just kiss the dog. I mean, there's a number of things that, might be very, very unhealthy, okay? And so, why don't you make a list? Why don't you make it an item? Why don't you make it an agenda that you're now going to, based on Matthew 18:15, go and talk to your spouse about it? So that's number 2. Can you lovingly do that? Yes or no? Okay, so this is where we're going. We're talking about the directions, okay? So the first direction was the nonverbal stuff that's coming at you and you are the recipient of it, and I asked you 2 test questions about it. Now, let's reverse the direction, okay? Now it's the nonverbal stuff that you are sending out, okay? So you're now sending it and your spouse is the recipient of it. So that's the second direction, okay? You're projecting it to your spouse. And again, there's a whole bunch of nonverbal stuff, but the top 3 are visual, audible, and physical. So what are you sending out? What kind of message are you sending out? We're not talking about words, but we're sending out the nonverbal things. And can we pick up where we left off? In the first direction that was coming to you, I gave you 2 test questions, right? Now we're in the second direction, which is just going out, and I'm going to give you 3 more test questions, okay? So you guys ready? It's coming at you, and we're going to pick up with test question number 3, okay? My nonverbal communication matches my words, okay? So my nonverbal communication that's going out matches the words that I'm saying. So watch. Experts say that the nonverbal is going out first and the words are coming out. But as the words are coming out and the visual, audible, physical, all that stuff is coming out, hopefully when it finally reaches the recipient, it matches. That's what we're talking about.
There's
So,
a question from Carissa. She asks, how about writing things down that you can't express verbally?
okay, I mean, there's no one right way. I do encourage people that I counsel, hey, organize your thoughts, write things down. And then again, even from there, you can split off into other options, like you write it down, and then maybe that'll help you organize your thoughts, and then you can convey them. So again, not one way to do it. It's more about the bottom line, Carissa, and that is, did you get the message to the person? Obviously, talking is very important, but sometimes writing things down in an organized way is good as well. Okay, so that's a good question. All right, let's keep on going. Looking at the clock, and I know 30 minutes have already passed. Okay, and I want to just go a little bit over time. I trust that is okay. But we were on test question number 3 about simplicity and consistency. I'm really sorry about that, but the question was that does my nonverbal communication matches my words, yes or no? And so with this, there's the danger of hypocrisy if our nonverbal communication goes out and then our words don't match. And so that's the big concern. Wow, we're dealing with this technical difficulties, and it's getting very dark as well. Sorry about all that. We will fix it later, but hopefully you can still benefit from the content here tonight. Let's quickly get to number 4. I'm going to give you a total of 5. Number 4 is I bless my spouse with my non-verbal communication. Yes or no? Is Dr. Don still there?
Yeah.
Is he able to? Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Don. And so, listen, we've already established that nonverbal communication is very powerful. So, if it's powerful, why don't you use it for good instead of evil? You know what I mean? God gave it to you for a purpose now to edify and to bless. And besides, isn't that the big agenda of marriage? That being married is a better move, that it's an upgrade. And so now you're going to, in whatever we're talking about, in this case, we happen to be talking about nonverbal communication, that should bless. It should edify. And so use it for good instead of evil. That sounds funny. Okay, but that's what I'm trying to say here. And so Proverbs chapter 15, verse 30 says, light in a messenger's eye brings joy to the heart. Okay, so now the messenger comes and he's got good news and his eyes are twinkling, right? And that, even just looking at his face, you get kind of encouraged by that. So how about that? The twinkle of the eye, the pleasant smile, the light-hearted demeanor, that diffuses the situation. And so all of these things, who was the one that asked? Was it Hammond? What was his name?
Hammond sounds right.
Okay, sorry about that if I mispronounced your name, but you asked about diffusing the situation. I'm getting very close to answering your question, but right now, that in your demeanor, in your face, you begin to just bless your spouse. And what would be the opposite of that? You walk into the room and the lights go out, right? Everything gets dark and everything gets tense. And do you know people like that? They walk in the room and they don't say anything, but all of a sudden it gets really tense. So listen, obviously your actions speak louder than words, and your actions can cause a lot of damage. But what did I say? Use it for good instead of evil. 1 John chapter 3, verse 18 says, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with action and in truth. And so now you can love, but you can show that love through your actions. And so we can talk about nonverbal application here, right? That nonverbal application is an act of love to your spouse. And so it definitely will speak louder than words. Let's keep on going. We're going to be hit by sprinklers pretty soon, so there's a lot of drama here. We got to get out of here. So number 5, remember a total of 5 questions? Yes or no? Okay, we're going to tally up the score in a minute. Number 5 is I adjust my nonverbal communication to please my spouse. Okay, so remember, it's going out, and you want to be sensitive where, again, the assumption is you've lived now for quite some time. And then later I'm going to explain the biblical principle of living with knowledge about your spouse. So you know your spouse, okay? And so based on your knowledge, you're going to make adjustments in a way that your spouse will appreciate that. So listen, that may not be your style, okay? You may not like particular nonverbal communication styles, but the point is you have a heart that is willing to make the adjustments necessary. Adjust is the key word here, okay, in order to please your spouse. So what's your style? Maybe you have a style that needs some adjustment. Rolling the eyes, smirking, tone of voice, okay. Maybe you're too aloof and you're not close. You might need to make some adjustments. Why? Because you love your spouse. Remember, love always overrides all of the other things. In this case, your style. Things that you are technically free to do. Because we're talking about, nonverbal things which are kind of like, it's not black and white, it's kind of gray. But the point is you're willing to adjust those things because you love, because love is the greater virtue here. Now that basic teaching comes from Romans chapter 14, where actions are adjusted so as not to offend the other person. Now remember, in Romans chapter 14, there's an element of freedom there. You can decide what to do, but you're adjusting your freedom because love is the greater goal. And so I believe that applies here, where you're going to adjust your nonverbal communication. Okay, can you still see me? Man, it's getting dark here. Okay, let's quickly wrap this up. So, tone of voice, proxemics, which is distance. All of these things can be adjusted. The way it comes up, let's get back to that. And so to Hammond, is it? Okay, my apologies. Asked a question about how do you diffuse a situation. Obviously, there's a number of ways, but since we're doing a show on nonverbal, we want to say that things like lower the volume, tenderize your tone, kind of put gentleness in the way that you speak. We're talking about how you speak. That totally diffuses the situation. What's the opposite? Speak loudly, speak aggressively, have a scowl on your face. All of these nonverbal things can really impact the situation. But what would be the opposite? Doing all the things. And that reminds me of Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1, where it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath. And so now that gentle answer does involve not just content, but it involves the gentle way that you can share that answer. Okay? And so listen, I've got a lot more that I want to say to you, but looks like I'm going to have to save that for another day. Okay? Because the show has run over, and I apologize for the technical difficulty. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. But Dr. Don, would you drop in the final review of all 5 questions there? And as he's dropping it in, you guys tally up the score, yes or no. Let me just read them for you. Number 1, I can cover the nonverbal inadequacies of my spouse. Number 2, I can lovingly point out my spouse's nonverbal communication that is bothering me. Number 3, my nonverbal matches my words. Number 4, I bless my spouse with my nonverbal communication. And number 5, I adjust my nonverbal to please my spouse. All right, it's getting dark. We got to go 9-9. Stuart, tell me, did anybody get a perfect score? Go ahead and check the scroll. Somebody raise your hand and tell me. Okay? Anybody get a perfect score? While we're trying to figure out who got a perfect score or who got a good score. 4 out of 5 is a good score. Okay? But if you're interested in learning more about this, you can go to my website, pastortay.com, and I have 3 audios there, probably about 3 hours of stuff called Speaking Without Words. Okay, so go ahead and check that out. But that's it for tonight. Okay, I want to pay respects to the 3 groups tonight. We have the Titus 2 community, and if you are not a member of that, join that, please. We also have the Explicitly Christian Marriage Facebook group. Join that group as well, please. And then we have the YouTube channel called Espresso, and thank you for watching through that. And before I go, one of the reasons why we combine all of these groups is so that we can have guest speakers come and speak to everyone here. And so that's one of the benefits, that you don't just have me, but in the future, of course, we always have Dr. Don visiting on a regular basis. But next week, we have a special treat. We have Dr. Ernie Baker. So Dr. Don, would you drop his name in there? Next week, Dr. Ernie Baker is going to speak to us on conflict resolution. Dr. Baker is recognized throughout the country as one of the experts on conflict resolution. And so we'll tell you about a specific topic later, but I'm excited, and hopefully you are, that someone of his expertise is going to come and talk to us about how to resolve conflict. So listen, we always end by saying that if you need help, please come to us. If you need prayer, please come to us. And if you need counseling, we'd love to help you through that as well. But for tonight, it's been a rather interesting show. I can't believe we had the technical difficulty. But I hope that you will cover that in love. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. So to the Titus 2 community, Explicitly Christian Marriage, and YouTube Espresso channel, goodbye for tonight. We'll see you guys. Hopefully you guys got some value out of it. Bye-bye.
Congrats on your perfect score, Don.
Don? Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for a devotional drink today. If you love Espresso, click here to subscribe so you know when the next one is ready to enjoy. Visit our website for resources for every chapter of your life. And if you're thirsty for more, click here. See you next time. May God bless your day.